Quand je dis ouais, mais il y a une escalade d'un pays d'une superpuissance.
Today, but it's really sad that already in 1 week after the 3rd anniversary of the full-scale invasion, we are forced to gather here on this Sunday in Brussels. We thank the police for their support with this emergency demonstration because we could not stay silent about what is happening right now in the US, in the whole world. So today, all Ukrainians and foreign friends, we stand here together in front of the US mission to the European Union to once again stand and say clearly that we are standing here together for freedom, we are standing here together for democracy, despite what is happening in the White House. Our demands are clear. They did not change from the last week, and today we will have 1 hour of demonstration. I ask you to be very active, to be very loud, because we are in front of the US mission. We are thankfully quite many today, so I am grateful for your participation, and let's start.
Дорогі друзі, по-перше, можна підійти трошки ближче, поліція дозволила, так, щоб ми стояли якомога ближче до цієї установи, яка знаходиться за нашою спиною. По-перше, дякую всім, хто прийшов сьогодні сюди на короткому повідомленні. Буквально це так звана стихійна демонстрація, яку спровокувала ситуація, яку всі бачили, всі знають, що відбулося, всі бачили, як це відбувалося в прямому ефірі. Тому дякую всім, хто прийшов сюди, і дякую всім, хто вирішив провести свій недільний гарний день, замість того, щоб смажити барбекю. Ви тут, ви підтримуєте Україну, і це добре, і нас сьогодні більше, ніж ми очікували. Це добре. Аплодисменти всім вам.
So the messages of today's demonstration are that we Ukrainians, we Europeans, we are not just cards in someone's geopolitical game. Ukrainians are not about mineral resources, but it's about people, about our culture, about the sovereignty and independence of our country. We are not resources to be traded, and we are not cards in negotiations, and we will not be bullied into capitulation, because the ceasefire that everybody wants Ukraine to do will end in genocide of Ukrainian people. And we are standing here today in front of the US mission to the European Union because, ironically, the US has been always a symbol of freedom, a symbol of democracy, of a free and democratic world. They were the ones that created freedom and that were defending this freedom. But today, these values of freedom and democracy are under attack, not only in Ukraine, not only in Europe, but also in the United States. The whole democracy is at stake, and the whole world is watching. They are watching at us, they are watching at our reaction, and even today we see how many medias came to see how Ukrainians react to it, how Europeans react to it, and we are very sure to say that we will not tolerate this in front of our eyes. So right now we want to ask, will the United States stand with democracy, or they will follow Russian propaganda and will turn into tyranny, and they will turn into authoritarian regimes? So now I Let's chant all together. USA, defend freedom.
USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom.
USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom.
USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom.
USA, defend freedom.
USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom. USA, defend freedom.
Today, I would like to also pass the words of the founder of Promote Ukraine, Marta Barandi, who unfortunately could not be here today with us as she is not in Belgium, but she also could not stay silent, and in this demonstration she prepared the speech that I will read now to you. That the US is approaching and encircling Russia, that the US is dangerous, that it is an enemy that uses such states as Georgia and Ukraine against Russia. Putin explained to its own people that he must preventively defend Russia from the US through attacking Ukraine. Russia instrumentalized Ukraine in its imperialistic policy and its latent war against the US. The main excuse for this full-scale aggression among the so-called elites was the American support to Ukraine. So now, if this support is gone, shall we expect Russia to completely withdraw its troops from Ukraine? Donald Trump says that the war would be over in 2 weeks if he was in power, but he completely ignores the will of Ukrainian people. So yes, the hot war would be over because Ukrainians would be forced to give up, and that is when the full-scale occupation and genocide would start. Trump accuses Ukraine of resistance to slavery and murder. The most cherished value of the United States of America, freedom for all, is on trial, and we are accused of defending it. Trump's reality is based on twisting the term freedom. His narratives are a collection of lies and myth. His common sense is a useful fiction. It is useful to Putin and to all those who feel strong to lead the war of all against all, who want our rule-based order gone. And if we don't know what the rules of the negotiations are, of communication, of interstate relations, of conducting businesses, and if we cannot see these rules, here we lose. The lawless world order, with its wildest implication, is being imposed on us by the strongest nuclear power states. If we want to keep our homes safe, our families close, if we want to see our kids smile, we must resist. And God be with us. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Now I would like to give the floor to our Belgian friend, Belgian politician, Georges Dalman.
Je vais parler en français. Je voulais d'abord vous dire merci. Merci du fond du cœur à vous, ce peuple ukrainien, qui avait affronté la sauvagerie, qui avait défendu votre liberté, qui avait défendu notre liberté, celle de l'Europe tout entière. Merci depuis 3 ans, depuis 15 ans, d'avoir effectivement combattu les troupes de Poutine qui avaient envahi votre territoire de manière illégale, illégitime. Un grand merci du fond du cœur. Nous sommes aujourd'hui là aussi pour dire merci à ce peuple américain qui, aux premières heures de la guerre, a combattu, en tout cas a donné des armes, rapidement, massivement à l'Ukraine pour pouvoir se défendre. Finalement, beaucoup plus que l'Europe dans les premières heures et dans les premiers jours de la guerre. Et ce peuple américain qui est aujourd'hui trahi par ses dirigeants, trahi dans ses valeurs, trahi dans son combat historique, dans ses fondements historiques, par ses dirigeants, par Trump, par Vance aujourd'hui, qui ont oublié quels étaient les fondements de l'Amérique, qui ont oublié quels étaient les fondements de l'Europe, qui ont oublié que l'Ukraine se battait pour nous tous aujourd'hui, contre la tyrannie, contre la violence, pour le droit international. Nous sommes là aussi pour rappeler effectivement que les Américains ne doivent pas se laisser trahir par ces nouveaux dirigeants, parce que nous avons besoin tous, Européens, Ukrainiens, Américains, de combattre la violence, de combattre la barbarie, de combattre cette tyrannie russe, de combattre la loi du plus fort. Nous ne devons pas avoir peur. Nous sommes là aujourd'hui pour rappeler cela, pour rappeler ces valeurs de liberté, pour rappeler que nous sommes tous ensemble sur ce front contre la Russie de Poutine aujourd'hui. Nous sommes là, encore une fois, pour vous dire merci. Vraiment, du fond du cœur. J'ai été pendant 10 ans le président du groupe d'amitié entre le Parlement belge et le Parlement ukrainien. J'ai été plusieurs fois en Ukraine. J'ai été encore il y a 3 mois dans le Donbass. J'ai rencontré vos soldats. J'ai vu leurs valeurs, j'ai vu leur courage. J'ai vu qu'ils étaient là pour nous défendre, nous tous. Pour nous défendre, nous tous, Européens. Pour défendre ceux qui aimaient la liberté, ceux qui aimaient le droit, ceux qui voulaient vivre libres en dehors de la tyrannie et de la brutalité. Donc merci. Merci à vous d'être là. Merci aux Américains de Joe Biden qui ont eu ce courage, qui ont eu cette volonté d'être à vos côtés. Non, nous ne laisserons pas Trump être l'ami de Poutine et trahir nos valeurs fondamentales, les piétiner. Il en va de notre liberté à tous, il en va de notre sécurité à tous dans les années à venir. Merci encore du fond du cœur.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur, pour votre... Russia's full-scale invasion that is going on already for more than 3 years against Ukraine is not just a territorial dispute. It's not only about the territories, about mineral resources, about money. It's a war against freedom, it's the war against democracy, it's the war against truth, it's the war against human dignity. And these values were exactly the values that the United States of America were built upon. And yet, some would believe that peace can come through compromise, through negotiations, and through appeasement. But we know that these negotiations, this ceasefire, it will end in genocide. So we want to be clear once again that there is no peace in surrender. The ceasefire will end in occupation. And peace is not occupation. So, let's say, no ceasefire with the terrorist state. 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 No ceasefire with the terrorist state.
No ceasefire with the terrorist state. No ceasefire with the terrorist state. No ceasefire with the terrorist state.
Because we know that there will be no peace in surrender. We know that this ceasefire without justice will end in submission of Ukraine. Every concession to Putin is an invitation for more terrorism, more blood, more war, and more destruction in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. And we know what occupation means and what already Russia did in Ukraine, in its occupied territories, we cannot let it repeat again. Russia has committed genocide, created filtration camps, executed our prisoners of war. They used chemical weapons. They blackmailed the whole world with nuclear weapons. They committed ecocide with our people and our nature and our animals. And yet, some people, some world leaders still believe that we can negotiate with this power. No! No ceasefire with the murderers of children. No deals with the butchers of Bucha. No appeasement of a regime that sees human lives as disposable. USA, don't betray. USA,
Don't betray! USA! Don't betray! USA! Don't betray! USA! Don't betray! USA! Don't betray! USA!
Don't betray. USA, 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 don't betray.
USA, don't betray. USA, don't betray.
I want to address American people. I don't know if there is any in this crowd, but Ukraine is also fighting for your values. I think you now have a clear picture of the situation in the world and of the side the government of the United States took. But we also want to say thank you because we know that American people are with us. And as citizens of the country that has always been a leader of democracy, of fighting for freedom, we must ask you, and we must ask you to ask your government not to believe Russian lies, not to be manipulated by Russia, not to believe Russian propaganda. Because for Russia, the truth and the facts don't matter. And people are just the object in their game. And Russia is watching right now. Russia is watching the United States. Russia is watching Ukraine and us here as well. Russia is using these narratives as a fuel for its own propaganda. They justify the war and inspire more hatred and more aggression against Ukraine and against Europe. This isn't just about us. It's also about you. It's also about your democracy and your future. And if the US turns away from freedom, then who will stand for it? USA, defend freedom! 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 USA, defend freedom!
USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom! USA defends freedom!
Once again, all of today, Ukrainians, Belgians, French people, everyone here, Europeans, Americans, Georgians, we are all here because we refuse to let democracy fail. We are here because we know that the price of silence is paid by human lives, and currently they are paid by the lives of Ukrainians who are fighting in Ukraine. So now we say, and I want all media to hear me clear, we say that America must not surrender to Russian influence. We say that the lasting peace starts with deoccupation and not concessions with terrorists. We should be strong. We should take a strong leadership against terrorist states. People are not resources. Ukrainians are not minerals. The territories are not about minerals. And world security is not a card game. And we are not cards in someone's geopolitical power game. To the people of the United States, we need you. We need your support now more than ever. We need your voice. We need you not just to watch and not just to react online and hope. We need you to act, to stand up, to voice your beliefs and to voice your support. Stand up, speak out, demand that your leaders defend democracy and not dismantle the whole democracy and democratic order in the whole world. Because if America abandons Ukraine, it will abandon itself together with Ukraine. So, we need the US, but the US needs us. We need you, you need 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 us.
Слава Україні, дорогі друзі!
Героям слава!
Слава героям ЗСУ!
Слава, слава, слава!
Я продовжу свій виступ англійською для того, щоб люди через дорогу нас зрозуміли. Dear friends, we have a problem. We have a problem here. And there is the way of how smart people are solving the problem. The way called 5 why and 1 how. So we're asking 5 questions why. First, why we gave up our nuclear weapon. Okay, there is an answer for that. To make the world safer, more peaceful, to get the support from the strongest countries in the world, from US especially, from UK, at that point. Okay, then we are moving forward. Why then you promised to defend our territorial integrity? Like Bill Clinton says, it's all over the internet now. And why you don't do that? Why you didn't do that in 2014 when the invasion started with Crimea and Donbass? Why there was no proper reaction on the invasion in 2014? Okay, there is also an answer maybe on that question. You thought that you can negotiate and you can solve this invasion and solve this crime peacefully. However, it didn't work out, and the world started to get okay with that. Yeah? The world started to get used to the fact that part of Ukrainian territory is occupied, and they continued to their tries to negotiate, to discuss, and behind the scene do business as usual. And that was the problem. Business as usual with the aggressor. The third question then, why did you do business with the country which invaded the part of the sovereign state? Why Europeans and Americans continue to invest in Russia? Why there was gas streams? Why there was uranium supplies to US? Why there was a lot of trade in between the countries? Okay. Okay, even microphone is that already. Why did he continue to do this business with them? Okay, there is an answer. Maybe at that point you thought that if you do business with them and they will see that they are dependent on you and you are dependent on them, they will do steps forward to make it peaceful. However, until now we see that it is not the case. When the full-scale invasion started, why there was no immediate full-scale reaction on the full-scale invasion? Why we were receiving weapons piece by piece to manage to survive, not to strike back? Why we had limits on the usage of the weapons which you provided us? There is the answer on this question. Because you were afraid that they will use nuclear weapons. However, it's not the case now, until today. So already 4 questions and all 4 answers are not the case. The 5th question is the most important. Why, in the most crucial moment of this war, you're turning back on us? When the last 10 years we were receiving the support, we were receiving the political, financial, military support from you, and in the most crucial moment when there is the life of millions of people and existence of one of the biggest countries in the world is at the edge. Why? This is the biggest question, which I don't have the answer now, but we will see it very soon. The time will show. Answering those 5 questions, we are getting to one how. How can we fix it? How can we change this narrative? And the answer for that, we need to turn 100 degrees other way around. We need to ask our American allies, on which side are you? On the dark side of the dictators, Putins, and other terrorists of the world, or on the bright side of the people who are fighting for their freedom, fighting for the freedom to decide, fighting their freedom to live, fighting their freedom to progress and become better and better every day. With your support, beside you, next to you. That is what is necessary to do. To turn around and to completely change everything what is going out. We need to stop doing business. We need to stop trying to please the dictator. We need to stop trying to convince him in negotiations. Yes, every war ends up with a negotiation and with the peace. But this peace needs to be good for Ukraine. It needs to be the right one, huh? The fair one, the one we deserve, the one which our brave men and women are fighting for and dying for. Their lives are at the stake. And if you think that conceding the territories is something what will please the dictator, think about the people who are living on those territories right now and continue to fight. Think about people in Mariupol who were forced to leave their cities. Think about the people of Pokrovsk, of Bakhmut, which completely lost their houses, lost their home, lost their way of life. And answering how, it is very simple. You just need to be on our side. We as people of Ukraine, we are very grateful and thankful, and we say thank you for everything you've done to us. And we hope that you will stay on our side. You will stay on the side of freedom. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini!
Now I would like to give the floor to our Belgian friend, Mark de Masmuter.
Thank you. My dear friends, I have been a journalist for more than 15 years, international journalism, political journalism. After that, I have been a member of parliament for 20 years. I've been involved in international diplomacy, and I've been involved in party politics for decades here in Belgium. I can assure you, I can tell you, when I smell a trap, it is a trap. And what we saw, this horrendous meeting in the Oval Office, I can assure you, this was a trap. This was an ambush set up by those who bought the American presidency to safeguard their interests. And Putin, he got exactly what he paid for, unfortunately. Set up to convince, probably, the MAGA supporters to show off. Look, this Ukrainian president, Zelensky, how ungrateful he is. Look, he doesn't deserve our support anymore. And have you noticed, dear friends, you have to look to the details. Have you noticed when you watched this meeting between Trump and Vice President Vance, on the cupboard against the wall, there was a small statue, a small bust of Winston Churchill, the great British war leader who visited the White House and the Oval Office in 1940. Could you imagine that President Roosevelt at that time would welcome Winston Churchill and tell him, "But why don't you want peace with Mr. Hitler? Why don't you negotiate with Mr. Hitler? Why don't you always say Hitler this, Hitler that? Negotiate, make peace, surrender. Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a costume? You are not grateful and you are not respectful." Can you imagine that? Winston Churchill didn't wear a suit. He wore a battle dress, a military uniform, like Zelensky does, because it doesn't fit to wear expensive suits and costumes while your people are dying in the trenches. That's why. So we are at a turning point, unfortunately. The US government has made a terrible turn. And this is a sad story, what I'm telling you, but that's what I see. But that's why we are here, to give a clear message to the other side of the street, to the government, that you should be on the right side of history. You should be on the right side what generations of Americans fought for. They spilled their blood here in Europe to defend freedom and fight against tyranny. But also to give a clear message to many Americans, the majority of Americans, and I know a lot of them, who are embarrassed as well by what they see and by what their president and their government is doing now and the road that they are following now. So we should indeed reach out to them to make sure that this government comes to senses again. And we have to step up our efforts as well. that there's something that Europe must do and that Belgium must do. Europe should learn this lesson, learn from what they see and what they learn now, and step up their efforts to unite, to join forces. Because maybe now, for the moment, we're on our own. But then, let's do it, let's join forces to make sure that we can defeat the evil, that we can stop the tyranny, that we can help Ukraine and to deliver them all that they need to win this war. And there is more than 200 billion sitting here in Brussels at Euroclear, Russian assets, which are frozen. It's something that, and I know it's difficult, and I know there are a lot of problems with it, and considerations to be made, but à la guerre comme à la guerre, seize the assets and use them to give Ukraine what they need to win this war. Thank you very much.
This demonstration wouldn't make sense if we only addressed our United States friends. In the end, we are in the heart of Europe. And the message for the European leaders is starkly clear. What happened 2 days ago in the Oval Office is a sign that whatever else happens in the United States does not have to shake the whole of the European Union. We cannot rely on the United States, our defense and security, to the degree that we have been the past 70 years. The numbers are striking. Even though the EU GDP is almost equivalent of that of US, EU spending for defense was 2.5 times less than that of the US. So I'm sorry to say that, but we created Trump. We let this guy be able to do what he does to Europe, to shake every capital of the EU. We did that with our naivety, with our reliance on the partners that are indeed surrounded by the beautiful blue ocean. Yes, they will feel the impact of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, but they will not have Russian troops marching to Baltics, to Poland, and further into European continent. So it's time for us to wake up. The spendings of the EU on military aid for Ukraine for the past 3 years were 0.7% of Russia's annual defense budget. 0.7%. The situation needs immediate action. And in the first place, it needs something that the European Union, unfortunately, has been lagging behind. Unity. Not just on words, but on actions. It needs united actions. It needs united increase in defense budgets. It needs coordination on defense spendings, purchases, production, logistics. It needs increase of the caps that the countries can spend on defense. It needs raising the limits of the credits that countries can have in their budgets. We need immediate action. We cannot just support Ukraine with words. Yes, we are extremely grateful to all the European leaders that were standing with President Zelensky after the events in the Oval Office. But what has to follow after those words? I'm sorry, but these are tanks, these are defense systems, these are artilleries. That's what has to follow. Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up!
Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up! Europe, it's time to wake up!
It's time to strengthen Ukraine so that it can defend you. We've been telling that this war is not about Ukraine. Our Baltic friends, our Polish friends can tell you that this is not about Ukraine. Russia is preparing to march into here, into peaceful and relaxed Europe. And this is not funny anymore. This is not about words anymore, this is about actions. It is insane that EU budget for defense is still below 2%, the bare minimum that NATO requires. It has to be 3, it has to be 5%. We are at the time of war. We are not at the time of deterring the war. The war has already come. It's time to strengthen Ukraine. It's time to defend Europe. Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe. Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe.
Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe! 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 Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe!
Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe.
Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe!
Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe. Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe.
Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine! Defend Europe!
Strengthen Ukraine. Defend Europe.
Strengthen Ukraine, defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine, defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine, defend Europe! Strengthen Ukraine, defend Europe!
Because as we always say, we fight so that you don't have to. And as long as we fight, Ukraine becomes independent. Ukraine stays the only one that decides where to use its troops, where to use its military-industrial complex. And as we always say, that the moment when Ukraine gets occupied, I'm sorry it sounds terrible, but Ukrainians will fight against you. And this is no joke. To fight against Ukrainian army, one of the strongest army on planet Earth. And I don't wish that this happens, but this is just the reality that happened during the Second World War. Czechoslovakia, occupied by the Nazi Germany, ended up being forced to fight against its European partners. This is a sobering reality, and we shouldn't let it happen. Already now, Russia mobilizes Ukrainians in the occupied territories. In Mariupol, in Donbass, they don't want to fight against Ukrainian brothers, but they have no choice. They have gone against their head. And this is the reality that will be coming if we don't act now. Europe, act now! 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 Europe, act now!
Друзі, зараз я хочу звернутися до кожного українця, хто сьогодні прийшов сюди. Ви бачите, що відбувається, і я вважаю, що ми з вами, ті, хто присутні тут, частково відповідальні за це. Я поясню чому, тому що за весь минулий рік ми провели не так багато демонстрацій. За весь минулий рік нас виходило на демонстрації все менше і менше і менше. Що таке демонстрація і навіщо виходити взагалі на демонстрацію? Демонстрація – це прояв волі людей. Це не політики в овальних кабінетах, незалежно від того, в костюмі вони чи ні. Це звичайні люди, які представляють свою країну. Якщо політики в овальних кабінетах бачать, що нам не все одно, то вони починають щось робити. Вони починають ворушитись. Вони починають робити правильні речі. Ті, які ми від них вимагаємо. Тому що вони залежні від нас. Незалежно від того, чи ми просимо це в українських політиків, чи то в американських. Всі політики залежні від волі людей. І якщо будуть бачити, що воля людей йде проти їх рішень, вибачте, проти їх рішень, то вони будуть міняти і перевзуватися на льоту. Повірте мені, ви можете побачити це на обличчі американського президента. Так? Він перевзувається, коли йому це вигідно. Так само будь-який політик, який йде проти волі народу, перевзується на льоту. Тому що вони переймаються за свої посади. Вони переймаються за те, щоб їх вибрали. І якщо вони будуть бачити, що люди проти них, вони будуть міняти свої політики. Тому я дуже прошу кожного з вас не просто приходити на демонстрацію, а заохочувати своїх знайомих. Кожного з вас є як мінімум 3, 4, 5 українців, які теж знаходяться тут. Заохочуйте їх приходити, пояснюйте їм те саме, що я пояснюю вам зараз тут. Це дуже важливо. Відповідальність на кожному з нас. Війна йде для кожного з нас. Незалежно від того, чи ми тут, чи ми в Україні, чи є в нас хтось напередку, чи нема, чи є в нас волонтери знайомі, чи є в нас бізнеси, які працюють на оборонку. Неважливо. Ми українці, війна в Україні, тому потрібно працювати і робити все, що від нас важливо, і все, що від нас залежно. А від нас залежить, це наше зобов'язання, да? Виходити і показувати свою громадянську позицію. Кожному. Американцю, українцю, бельгійцю, європейцю, неважливо. Всім. Ми повинні показувати, що нам не все одно. І якщо нам не все одно, їм теж не буде все одно. Дякую. Слава Україні!
So now, before closing the demonstration, we will close today at 1:05 because we will have a live streaming from Belgium. So we will stay until 1:05. Thank you to the police for granting us more 5 minutes.
Друзі, Белград.
America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia.
America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia.
America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia. America must not surrender to Russia.
Peace starts with the occupation.
Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation. Peace starts with the occupation.
Peace starts with the occupation.
Peace starts with the occupation.
Peace starts with the occupation. Peace
are not a game.
Our lives are not the game. Our lives are not the game. Our lives are not the game. Our lives are not the game. Our lives are not a 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 game. Our lives. USA, defend freedom. 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 Defend freedom. USA, 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 stay strong. Europe, 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 stay strong.
And once again, to all the American and European people who always stood with us, to all of you who came together today to this protest, to all who fought for our truth in the offices, at the negotiations, in social media, to all of those who continue to spread awareness and to support Ukraine. On behalf of Ukrainian community in Brussels, we thank all of you. But the fight is not over, and we should not back down, because Ukraine is not just a land. Ukraine is not minerals. It's not leverage. It's not a card in the game. Ukraine is people. It's the people with who you today stand together in this crowd at this demonstration. And we will not be erased. We will not surrender. We will fight for our freedom. And we ask you, will you fight with us together? Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава героям ЗСУ!
Слава, слава, слава!
Слава героям ЗСУ!
Слава, слава, слава!
Слава героям ЗСУ!
Слава, слава, слава!
Now let's sing Ukrainian anthem together.
По-перше, тримаємося. По-друге, вище носа. Нам не на часі хникать, плакать і падать духом. Треба працювати. Ми працюємо. Ще раз попрошу, включіть нам гімн, будь ласка.
for showing up today in a great big number. Please follow Promote Ukraine pages for the future announcement of the demonstrations. When there is an urgent demonstration, we publish it on the pages of Promote Ukraine. Thank you.
Дорогі друзі, слідкуйте за нашими наступними демонстраціями і приходьте на них обов'язково. Якщо у вас є можливість, підходьте до нас якимось чином, якщо ви хочете допомогти чи доєднатися до нашої організації, будь ласка, підходьте, ми завжди відкриті. І не забувайте, наша задача приходити і показувати нашу волю. Дякую всім. Слава Україні!
Слава Україні! Героям